profits, and to reward those, it's a reward system, a spoil system that goes back to mafia and then further back to monarchy, where, if you're favored at the court, you're going to get the spoils, and if you're not. So it really is like a central human, very old, people know it. This is the Tsar. Why it's so connected to Russia is that the Tsar owned people, and Putin pretty much acts that way. And I think the sad part is that the Russians are conditioned to that, right? So they allow it, or they say, well, it's always been this way, and they culturally have felt kind of like, I don't know, I can't pretend to be in their shoes, but and by the way, I'm trying to make intestines texture, which is a sort of a pink and magenta, much lighter pink, and just a line of magenta and some red, and I'm going to accordion that.
Accordion?
Yeah, accordion. I mean, you remember yesterday when I was like rapping, doing that kind of thing for the brain? Mm-hmm. It's going to be something like that, because there's the large and the small intestine and the stomach. Those are three objects that have to be made, and the large wraps this weird way all around. It's very strange. It wraps like as an outline around the small intestines that are in the middle, which, I always thought it was large first, small second, but it's really large wraps around once and then small wraps around inside large. And they have two different kinds of sort of accordion texturing, which I have to try to find a emulation for. So this is really me doing, prepping. This is sous chefing again, and it may not look like much, because it, half the time is just this. Is thinking what you want to do and sous chefing all the pieces to try to get there. And then when you're actually carving and putting the animation in is the other half. And I don't find this is not as taxing, but I also don't know what to say. I'm just making a sandwich, yet another color sandwich, everybody. And the extrusion takes forever, because really when you sit at clay, what you want to be doing is talking about other things and working with other people who do clay around you. And then I'm going back to Claytown. That would be the way I grew up. So a lot of parallel play, right? Where everybody's just doing their own thing and they comment when they want. And then this kind of tediousness goes by fine. Mm-hmm. It's the attempt to try to speed it up, because I don't want to bore you or take up too much of the camera. And so I'm pushing harder. And but it's still it's tedious for me, It's like, it's not happening fast enough, and it's not really that interesting to look at once you get it. It's just actually learning your fingers to do it and teaching yourself to be decent enough to, I'm making a square that's been expanding. It takes a while to get the feel of it. And that's the trick, not me talking about it, or you conceptually already understand. I'm just extruding. And I could put it, it would be great if I had a pasta grinder that had fatter settings, because this would be a candidate. I could actually get a lot done if I had a fatter setting for the pasta grinder. And there probably is.
Is that the widest it is?
Sadly, what you see there seems to be the widest. Seems like 3/16, maybe somewhere between an 1/8 and 3/16 at most. Maybe it's less. The width of it looks like 3 millimeters. I mean, take a look. The gap. I'm sure they exist. I just haven't. I guess the good thing is also this is exercise. This is sort of like doing grip exercises. A lot of people buy equipment and do it stupidly, and I guess I'm actually getting something done while doing grip exercises. I guess it's eye-hand coordination, and it's muscle connection. Perhaps this is actually the best part of clay, is that you're actually connected to a material that's responding to you, and that loop is creating plasticity in your brain that continues to ground itself. I guess I'm grounding myself, right? It's unconscious. But now I'm gonna need a lot of it, or I'm gonna go ahead and do one more because I may need a lot of it. And I know again that's boring.
Have you ever done ceramics?
Sorry, what?
Have you ever done ceramics?
A very small amount, yeah, nothing. I did it in 6th grade and one more time. Pottery, certainly plaster. I've seen ceramics done well, and I do watch, as people who are good do it. I guess there's so many little things. I've done slip clay, but I use slip clay, and so I appreciate ceramics because, one of the best stories I have about Peter Gabriel's Big Time is the opening shot, how that was built. And it was supposed to be a dry lake bed. And so in a sense, it's like the beginning of Earth, and it's molten and boiling, and then enough activity happens that it starts to get green and the whole mountain grows. I don't know if you've ever watched the video, but take it that that's kind of what's going on. So as a stop motion animator, how are you going to animate bubbles on a dry lake bed? Take the challenge. Come on. So I used, back to pottery clay, I used slip clay, which is a really thin pottery clay. It's like really elegant and silty. And I put that down over the plasticine. And when you heat gun it, it cracks just like the surface is just gorgeous for exactly that. And then how do we get the bubbles? We took a giant needle injector, like a big ass syringe, and we took slip clay, and we literally, a frame at a time, grew the bubble through the syringe, pushing it in, and it would just grow. A little more, a little more, a little more. So I have a lot of respect for the versatility of using that as a way of accomplishing something. Plasticine couldn't do either of those things alone. That's a not well known anecdote from that. Nobody knows, or most people don't. I was very proud of that set because I built it, designed it while I'm doing all the Stratacut too. I was trying to do both.
What Stratacut were you making at the same time?
Oh, if you ever watch it, it's the dancing. There's these dancing girls on a bunch of pennies, a roll of pennies, and it's going big time, and they're singing, they're lip syncing, they're dancing to the beat. So I had the click track, and I basically lip synced and did the dancing to the beat. They're very frontal kind of cave painting, iconic in their design, but
is that the one with like the white car?
Yeah, the white car goes in the White House. The car goes down into the White House, and it's very hard to see, but there's like my big mouth is I don't know, it's food becoming a steak. Maybe it's French fries becoming a steak. There's just a lot of little things. There's a clock. I did a brief clock on that. And the fact that the 3 singers were in sync and they danced, that was and the fact that it went to the White House from the car. It's like, and you just built the fucking White House in 2 days, this way in 2 days, right? I mean, it was 4 weeks long. So not only was the first minute I designed the set and directed the camera move, and we built the camera move to do it, but it has this, the set was built on a piece of wood, several pieces of wood, but it was designed to have levers. So off screen, there were levers being pushed and up and down, and so the whole set, including the clay, was pushing the lake bed and pushing the mountain underneath it. And so it would be going down 8 frames or up 8 frames, trying to get to the beat, big time. And nobody, I think they sense it. You know it's in there. It's like this sort of earthquake eruption happening on the beat, that if you actually look at the shot. And I think it really helped the thing carry during the sort of organic growing process, because otherwise it was all this, we were putting all these greenery and flowers, we were building this mountain, and it became green and live and lush. That was the story, going from nothing to something. So having the beat in the set. So a part of the mountains were actually kind of like boom, boom, boom. Anyway, those are tricks. They were good ones. They worked. Okay, so I'm getting closer to intestine time. I do have a stomach to get through. So that's a different thing. It's a smaller problem. I want to get the intestines are the bigger problem, and their design is really crucial. I was talking about the accordion. Yeah, I know what I'm going to do. Okay. It's a slight variation on what I was doing with the brain, but it's a different variation. I'd like to take a pencil or a pen and roll against it. I will go ahead and use the X-Acto knife. It's greasy already. All right, so all I'm going to do is try to use the pen as a, this circular mold as a method to accordion the shape. I'm building the angle that's going to be the 45, but I'm building it out of a fluid shape. So this is in a sense like, what is that peristaltal, that action in your stomach? When there's some peristaltal action that's actually a kind of throbbing that makes your food go down and makes stuff go through you. And this is the lining as it's pushing, it's sort of rolling the curve down. So you'll kind of see it, just moving down through the shapes. That's what this is attempting to be. It is rough. That does not matter. I'm not trying to do text anymore, so thank God. Meaning it's ripping on this side. I'm giving up on the... I just use this as this is a good tool to get yourself started. Once you understand what you're trying to make, then you actually can just do it by hand once you've got the hang of it. But that was a way to guide you to say, hey, it's a series of U shapes, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And lo and behold, I'm making the sandwich again. The diagonal, lines that are going to be the animation, as it will be standing on its side slightly like this, or whatever angle I choose to program it, whatever sculpting programming I want to do to define how fast it's moving through the intestinal walls. And this is the large intestine. The small is we have much, much smaller. And I'm going to use only the bottom two. This is going to have to go from the stomach to the top of the intestine, this first one. It's just going to move through the stomach down. Slightly different. All right, so same thing here. I'm first going to make it thinner, try to extrude it more, get it flatter, and then do the same. When I say I'm going to put it, you know what I'm talking about. It's going to be like that, about roughly. Some version of lines going diagonally down like that to let the movement of the, Anyway. All right. Extruding.
Are you gonna have a esophagus?
Yeah. It can be simple. The hard part is if I can get the intestines right, then all of the stomach is a shape with a couple of whatever. It doesn't have to be sophisticated.
Yeah.
It's all about the weirdness of selling the fact that this is the big and small intestine and getting some of that through. Once that's through, then I can go fix the top. And if I was really adventurous, I would put a black heart, a beating black heart. And the beating black heart would have a nasty little tiny face on it. Yes, I would make it black. And if you were to really beat the heart, it's pretty simple, whatever shape it is, it just grows and shrinks, It grows, shrinks, grows, shrinks. It's in time space. Again, that'll take more time, and this is already going way long. All right. So I'm quickly just trying to make large intestine. I want to make this first because I don't know how, there's only so much of it you need, and then everything else is going to be much smaller. The small intestines are just a whole other bag. All right. So, you know, this is diagonals feeding, you know, sort of living with each other now. I'll do one more, probably two, don't need to, but I mean, I do need to, yeah. The key hard part will be keeping it from bloating, like the hat bloated a little. And I don't know how I'm getting away. I'm putting way too much in here to keep it contained, so it's probably going to bloat. I mean, the intestines take what they take, and in order to do them smaller, I'd actually really have to take more time. So in order not to take more time, I'm doing them larger. And that will change the design would be ideally more totem pole like, and this is going to actually make it a, let's say, a little heavy on the bottom of the totem pole. Okay. And maybe this is a bridge too far. You know, it's quite possible that I should have just stuck with intestines and not tried to do this ridiculous idea. And that will clutter it so much and fatten it out so much that it's kind of bloating the whole idea, and it's not really all that necessary. That is a distinct possibility, because, you know, when you get too ambitious and you're trying to sell multiple concepts in a strata cut and not spending a lot of time making them super precise, better to stay simple. All right. So this is squaring, I'm squaring the box again, like just to see. So this is probably a cartoon of an intestine, not a, that's pretty intestine-like. So I have a dilemma. The speedier, well, maybe I don't have a dilemma. These lines are fairly 45, so it almost matters not which side I shoot it from, which side I use it with. So you could, if it's more like 30 degrees, like here, and then it starts to matter. Like this will be faster, and if I do it this way, that'll be slower if I actually put it in. Mm-hmm. Excellent. You're agreeing because you partially understand. I like it. All right. Large intestine. Yeah, it might work. A lot of this is me trying to, now I'm extruding the whole thing, and it's actually decreasing the speed as I do it. It could be better that I just cut it and I go back. Maybe that's what I'll do. And I can go the other way. What I'm trying to do is get it to that height. I can simply, yeah, this makes it go, I think this actually makes it go faster. I'm elongating it, so it's going faster because the slant is increasing across the plane, so yeah. All right. Okay. You know, I don't know how fast this will go, and I'll probably only, I mean, I don't know. At some point I'm gonna have to break because this is a lot of work, but you know, I would try to get as far as I could at some point, and then I could focus on the Star Spangled poop emoji coming out of the intestine down, which is its own complete new set of. All right, so this will be, I'm going to call it the large intestine, and I have to build the small one. This will be the small one. What am I going to do? I think the small one is much more perforated, or is much more sort of wound up on itself in a zigzaggy way. The big one is just sort of puffy, blah, blah, blah. I think it just needs, I'm going to do it straight. Not because it's not going to be animated, but because it's just going to be a more controlled extrusion, because I'm actually going to make a much smaller version of that. So I'm stretching it out while I try to fold it back and forth on itself. And it will be just a whole nother level. I'm going to do this only in spades, so it'll be even thinner and less, much less to scale. Very distinct from the big ones, big intestines. Okay, again, I'm trying to extrude as I go. So you see I'm just trying to press it down. It's still skinnier here and fatter up here. I mean, I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, one simple trick is just to cut it in half right through the middle. And yeah, I could do that. I'm going to do that. Watch out.
Could it have then?
I'm going to just slap red as the actual outside of the sausage tubes. So it's a way of using, if this gets a lot thinner, smaller, it's fine. I'm going to add just a red, a bit of a sealer. Say, all right, that's, yeah. Because now I'm going to extrude a hell of a lot more. And it's going to be a small fucking intestine. What I was thinking is I could cut it down the middle and do that as well. In a sense, you're going small automatically, but then you're getting a different kind of chatter in there. But I don't want to do that until I put it on an angle, and I haven't done that yet. So I need to extrude it more and then put it on an angle like this is. And it really doesn't matter which direction. The only thing about the big intestines are all I care about as far as their direction. They have to be pushing from here down. They have to be animating that direction. The small is just like it's a bunch of convoluted little. All right. I'm going to put it on a 45, a steep one, like that. The reason I'm making it steep is as I extrude it, it's going to get more shallow. So I put it on yeah, it's going to get more shallow, which makes it more, I know I'm using the words in a strange way. By steep, I mean the actual kind of rolling downhill part of it. But once it's extruded, it will actually be going faster. And since that's a steeper, aggressive animation, right now this is not. This is a gentler animation, but as I extrude it more sideways, it's going to become that. All right. And this little last piece needs to yeah. Okay. So my goal is to probably extrude it twice as skinny as this stuff. That's my goal. Makes it smaller and smaller and smaller. How are we going to get the letters through here?
Are you not gonna just put on that?
I'm just going to put them on the side and sort of form fit. I'm going to form fit the edge of this thing around it. So it will be kind of a bullet. It's going to be, I don't know, we'll see. It'll be a cheat. I could add more to make it, I could add another layer of red on the opposite side so it seemed like, oh yeah, I'm inside this tube. But generally it's just flowing down next to, onto, through. And down here in the small intestine, I guess my question is, should I just use shards of blue and white and red? All right, this is the idea. It's in here. All right, this may be too extruded, but I'd stop now. I wouldn't go further. You know, it should try to coil on itself visually a little bit, and that's sort of working. All right. It'll be great in animation, but it might be a little too not bumpy enough for. Okay. So now we get to the good stuff. Finally, maybe let's do a little bit of this and then pause for the night after. So FUX. Watch me extrude it even more, make it even smaller, because I can do it. There. So it's simply on the inside of it. I'm going to go ahead and conform it. So the intestine is in a sense shape shifting to allow it to go through. And then I'll put some red on the opposite side or some pink to say it's actually going through the tube. And then I'm going to do the next one. Yeah. So a little further down, more of this is happening. And yeah, a little further down. More of this is happening.
That's long.
It may be too long, yeah. I guess I can shorten it up if it's too long. It's better to have a little more because I can't go back and make it again. So yes, I overdo it a little because I don't want
Have you ever cut something that consistently in one slice? That long?
This long?
Well, it's gonna be long. It's gonna be
Oh, I see. Well, no, it's going to be packed up.
Oh.
It's not going to be that kind of a long thing. I see. No. It's I want to just maybe pink is better. I'll go ahead and I'm going to do our old friend. I guess I like this color because it's just so soft.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to cover a lot of area quickly as a blanket of
Yeah, like the color palette I have at home is so random just
Yeah.
because I was basing it off of how soft the clay was.
Sure, yeah, it's true. And I try to work with colors because they're good most of the time, but mostly I just work with what comes out of the package, right? Because it's just way too much work to do
Mix it.
double boiling, yeah, to mix it. And so I developed a 8-color palette and then like a 24-color palette, and I'm really being guessing there, but ultimately what came out of the package, I tried to make a design style out of those 8 colors that somehow worked, and then later kept adding better palettes, but still sort of carrying on to that rudimentary. It's in here, you know. This is, I don't know, basically 10, maybe 10, 12 colors. I don't know, maybe depends on how many shades you want to break down, I guess, within. Is this a color? It's all muddy from fingerprints and whatever. Okay. So the large intestine ultimately comes out of the stomach, curls all the way around like a big kind of open box. That's going to make this go upside down. Unintentional. I mean, I don't know if that's good. I don't think it's good. And, you know, it makes no sense for this to be going this way, but I'm going to do it, and this will be coming out the, I'm going to sort of wrap it, and it'll come out the anus at the bottom. Oh, I fucked that up. It should be kind of the opposite way. Let's say it's like that. So I'm going to wedge that little piece back in and have it, it's in a sense it's crossing. It's like there's an invisible loop crossing, and this is going to be coming back down and then out that way to the evacuation hole. Evacuate! It's on fire! All right. So I think I'm good as a general shape. You have to imagine it is giant. I mean, that's probably the stomach. This is giant. That's what I mean. It always grows, and that's speed. It's a lot of things, right? If I made the letters even smaller, I could have taken longer, less readable, potentially. All right. And I mean, I could truncate. I don't know. It may not be tall enough, so maybe I can get a little mileage out of just shrinking it by thinning it out, because it needs to be taller anyway to get the full depth. So I've made them too short. So here I am extruding it the other way and pushing it back up so it's actually taller. And that's getting closer. I'm gonna have to do that with all this material. Taller, taller, taller. Thinner. Yeah.
What was the name of the animator that had your pieces in the first Powerhouse show?
Oh, the animator, I think Dougie Olson. He's a storyboard artist. And he knew, you know, my work, and he's a figure drawer. He likes figure drawing, and Pao likes figure drawing, so that's how they got to know each other, I think, at Powhouse, doing figure drawing. Because as a storyboard artist, you know, getting your chops is good. All right, I'm growing it this way. It's all getting taller. It's going to go in the stomach. Really, it should be a little shorter. What the hell? I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, I'm going to truncate it a little bit more, because I really don't want it to be that long. We're going to get the point across that it's a fucking intestine without having to drag everybody's brain fat, make it fat. So that would be my goal with a stomach. So it'll end up about there once the stomach is stomach's gonna be right there, esophagus here. So down to the small intestine. And I'll go ahead and, this is the piece that's the little last, this is the Q of the intestine. There it is. Yeah. All right, so what I'm gonna try to do is fit the small intestine in this hole now, and use that as my negative space. It's going to be highly wrapped. But since it's going to be highly wrapped, I'm extruding a little bit more, even though it's probably weakening the intestinal blob texture, because it really needs to be thinner. In order to be small, big, you really are going to know, that's small, that's big. It's the lesser of two evals. I'm going to go ahead and add a little more blue. And I'm not doing much with this blue, by the way. I'm just, in a sense, trying to keep the story going. And the story is, he's swallowed 3 FUXs, So these are smaller little chunks of FUX flowing through the small intestine because they've all been ground down by the big intestine in order to get to the small intestine. He's digesting it. All right, so this is the flow, the muscle flow, the periosteal, whatever they call that. So I'm just going to throw some chunks of blue on the angle that it's being pulled down through. So you can imagine that a more complicated FUX was built in there and now is deteriorated into small intestine mush. All right, now small intestine is really fun because it's just a giant, it's doing the accordion thing, only just larger. That's it. And the chunks of blue will be moving through it, right? Mm-hmm. At an angle, which will sort of sell the rest of it and what's going on, maybe. I think you'd kind of, in order to really be a small intestine, you don't want it all to be just zigzag zig, although it could be. And so I'm going to throw in some, a random, I don't know, shape that's still working, like it's folding over itself, and this is just what's behind it. Still doing its thing. All right. And then I have to decide how to,
Put it in.
Yeah, how to actually shoehorn now into that tiny little hole. Okay. There's a lot of intestine I didn't use. All right, so now I built this as sort of a mock, but I can easily take it apart. I'm going to go ahead and clean up some of the insides because it's kind of blobby in here, and I really want a shape that's more consistent top to bottom. Why? Because then they can see animation in it, but they're not watching the outsides wobble quite so much, although that could be fun. And so I can tell that it needs to be squeezed a little more to make this kind of trapezoid. Down to the gut, somewhere in the belly button. All right, now this is super ridiculous, ambitious attempt at digesting.
It looks like it.
Does it? Yeah. Well, Stratacut is good for some things. It's got, now here's, I'm gonna go ahead and just not try to just, I could literally just jam clay in there and finish it, but I'm going to try to drag it out, pull it up properly so it continues the intent of the animation that was built for it. Looks like I am going to add a little, I'm just going to do shape inside so it's just organized, not just jammed. This feels like a gap, and I'm going to give it its own little negative space intestinal piece. That way I can push it in. And yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So what's going to be fun, whether or not we do a black heart beating, is the little sphincter. Because it could beat too. It could be, if it's going to be pushing out a red, white, and blue turd, it could be throbbing as it does it. Because it's going you could do that. And you would want the response of the stuff coming out to sort of match the rhythm of this little, God, how would I even... I'm going to try to ballpark a few things. We're not going to finish them tonight, but since we have this, I'm going to ballpark, well, sort of where's the stomach going to go? Okay. It's going to be kind of a simpler... We're going to put it as a red thing, although it'll be pink on the inside with a jelly bean. It's a jelly bean. Do it red. So... and there'll be an esophagi, which is whatever. It's going to be something. Gonna have a little black heart. Beating, is that his left or right side? It depends. We kind of want it the opposite way, I guess. If we're looking at that thinking this is the way the letters read, then his left is this side, which means I'll go ahead. This is not how the textbooks do it. They always do it the opposite side for some reason. At least the ones I've read. They always put the, well, maybe they're putting the stomach on that side, but I'm going to put the heart on this side because, which means, yeah, I need to make sure that whatever is the stomach is doing this, and then the little heart's doing that, and the esophagus is there. That's roughly what it'll, yeah, I'll have to figure that out. And do I want to add a little blue going down into the stomach too? Probably. Just
like little veins.
Well, I could do, yeah. I was thinking more, no. I was thinking he's where's this stuff coming from?
Oh.
So I was just going to keep adding this, this color, white and blue, definitely, down going to the red. This didn't matter because there was enough white in it. I'd never add any white, but this matters a little bit since it's going to mostly be esophagi with no white, not much. And so I'm going to do the letters more up here. And then this will be, I don't know how we'll do.
Photo.
Sure. Here, let me, do you want to see the
Proof.
yeah, the proof. Well, it's going to work in animation, not so great on the butt end of the slice. I think it'll get a little clearer once it's in there. One thing I could do is actually pull it apart and add a little separation between the small intestine and the big intestine, because it really is this strange.
Will the animation do it itself?
Yes, but
but
I'm
for
trying to,
stills?
yeah, I'm thinking for stills it's going to be difficult to potentially, and then we can proof the other side and see if it's any better. It's not going to be because it's at a butt end again, so it's kind of going to be blobby and less readable. And here I am compressing it rather than pulling it apart. Duh. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just throw in some tiny shadow to make sure that the clarity of the small is separated from the clarity of the big. I'm going to use my favorite stupid soft clay. It'll be sufficient as an outliner. And it just, all I'm doing is really, in a sense, cartooning the entire inner small intestine with this color drop shadow. Okay. Red, white, and blue. A little more. Okay. All right. I'm going to close it back up. I'm not sure that I did a bang-up job there, but you'll graphically understand, I guess, a little bit that there's this is, I guess, needs a little, I'm just trying to continue it out. It's done rough, so it needs, I'm going to separate the two. I need to do it more fully. Okay. Done. Done. All right. Let's see what we got. This is be the proof on this side. It's very soft, so it's fascinating how they cut differently depending on how they're So these are two of them on different routes. I looped them, right? So they're going to be going past ships passing in the night in animation. they're starting out in one location and ending up in another. All right. And so that'll be the stomach. I'm probably going to want this on the stomach, so you know that it's super clear that the intestine is coming from the stomach, whatever that is. I'm going to figure that out tomorrow, maybe make a black beating heart, and then figure out no, I have never cut anything this long. That's true. That'll be fascinating. It probably will be cut in pieces, sadly, by the time it's done, because it's a little unwieldy. You're not going to get every cut right, and so you're inevitably going to end up with partial cuts, which you'll go ahead and finish. Mm-hmm. But it's not, not ideal. Okay, and then there'll be a little poop hole, right? And then the red, white, and blue coming out. And in my imagination, this will be the last. I think I can finish it tomorrow based on that. Well, I do have a strange idea about how we could, it won't be quite this bad, but what is this? The colors of the Russian flag, only not in the right order. I think it's flipped the other way, but it's, because it's going to be poop emoji, and he's probably, a really cranky one, a really Karen emoji. He's I don't know if the camera's even on this, and we're working off the set. Okay, cool. It's not going to be red, white, and blue like this, because the eyes will conflict with something that's simple. So it's going to be more a series of animated stars, and I'm going to try to make them
stars as the texture for the poop.
Yes, stars and stripes. I mean, it'll be red, white star, blue, white star on blue background, red, white star on blue background, red, and just a single star, and it'll be animating out. But I need to do it in a color space that's not competing with the bright whites of the eyes, otherwise it won't read. It'll be too confusing. It's already ambitious, way too weird. I kind of like this. This is like the guts of red, white, and blue being digested in fractional pieces. And so, long story is that just the white of the stars should be maybe a little yellowish. It's already, this is ivory, not bright white. And I may, just thinking ahead, go with that I keep the stars small, yellowish, ivory, and that way they don't compete once I carve the face in. It'll be clearer with a smile on the faces. So I'm just, when we start tomorrow, I'm going to make the triangle. It's going to start as a triangle of off-white, yellow-white, with a little blue. It's a series of a star is basically 5 triangles, right? And you're just building the negative space around the 5 the triangles, and trying to make a circle out of it, basically. And that circle will become, and then you squish it down, because you're anticipating if it's actually animating like this at some angle, it's coming out, and it's animating as it comes out. You would squish it flat like these were, like this way. The stars will have to be ovals by the time they're leaving, so they look more normal by the time they're cut. And one last concept, possibility at least, is that I could start the animation way up here, because the truth is, if you want to animate the plop, you have to, and yet I want the graphic nature of the entire piece. I could just animate this whole piece alone all the way to that moment, and then just let the rest of it roll, because then you could actually do the extrusion plop as animation, which is silly, difficult, and seems like, hey, this is the sort of stuff you want to know. It's deep, it's dark, it's difficult to think of. So I could do that. Tell me what you want. It's easier than not. But having thought about it, I think, oh, if this is, I don't know. Yeah, if this is going bum, 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 bum all the way down, it would start as a tiny little thing and it would blob down this way. And it's like a little soft serve ice cream cone, right? I've got to animate that. And we'll talk about it that way tomorrow so we're not giggling as much and embarrassed. Okay. So, look, it's a mess of clay. That's what we got left here. Some of these colors, could be reused or could have been reused. Maybe I'll reuse it up here as an accent to the esophagus once I build it. I'll probably have to add some circus green back in these areas because it's going to get way too thin, and I want to beef it out like this is beefed out. So it's actually, I see the oil that comes in because it sat in the pack for 20 years, and it makes the clay harder. It literally does because the oil has seeped to the part that it can, the gap, and so that's missing, so the elasticity is worse until that oil gets back in there. You could simply melt it in a double boiler, it would all go back. But often the best way to handle hard clay is to put mineral oil or some kind of oil in to soften it again. If you put it in a double boiler, but it will melt it down and the color will become something else. One last anecdote. We created a special color in Claytown called Shelly color. My sister had her own name for her own color because when you look at all the detritus that's left over here now, look at all this stuff, right? It's just gobs and gobs of leftover clay. We would just mash it up and and it makes this sort of a deep sort of rich brown, which became Shelly color because she would always make her bricks out of it. She made her castles out of it, out of the leftover clay. When you added enough of it, it generally always evened out to this sort of, it wasn't a rich brown. It was more of it's not rich brown like that. It was more of I guess you could call it a little bit muddier, but it had a kind of Rembrandt quality, I guess. It had a kind of darker, richer brown. And that was Shelly color. So all of this is potentially that. The more you mix of all the colors, the closer you're going to get to Shelly color. It's a random thing, right? So if you're mixing this together, it's not going to be Shelly color because it's way too on the spectrum toward probably purple by the time it's done, or some kind of blue-red. But if you mix this, it's getting there. This would oddly enough end up as a kind of a darker, I don't know, that's not a good example. It's a little grayer too, the brown that was being made, but it was sort of gray brown. And she would make her perfect little bricks and build her castles out of that stuff. So every clay that got thrown away or was no longer usable, because you've seen the chatter here, right? Mm-hmm. You got to look closer with this stuff. It gets to be unusable, or you use it again as a texture. Like I could wrap this up and it'll be a texture in something else potentially if I let the colors stay true to themselves. All right, that was an anecdote. Tomorrow maybe we'll attack this and then we'll move on to other, then we'll have to spend a day animating it, taking photos.
Sweet.
All right.
Fiend.
Fiend.